Pisces, it's Raina. This is a video about the transit of Jupiter in Capricorn, which is beginning this December 2nd, and lasting for over a year until December 18th of 2020. And for you, you are so lucky because it's in the luckiest house. It's in the 11th house of hopes and wishes when it goes into Capricorn. And right now, Jupiter is in your 10th house of career. So hopefully, I'm recording this on the 9th of November, and Jupiter is almost out of its shadow. A few more days when the, couple more days actually. Yeah, 3. When the full moon is in Taurus, that'll be the same day that Jupiter goes out of its shadow. So around the 12th or 13th of November. And so then we're going to have like a few weeks where Jupiter is completely moving ahead, where it is further than it has been in its transit altogether. So hopefully you understand what I mean, but you don't really have to. Just it's really progressing now. But then it leaves Sagittarius in just a few weeks, so we don't get to have it much longer in Sag. But then it goes into your 11th house. And first I want to say a couple of things. You know, Jupiter is the ancient ruler of Pisces, and it so you have an affinity with Jupiter to begin with. And the other thing that I want to say is that Jupiter is the area where you can see yourself aligning very easily with something. It's lucky, but the fact that it's in Capricorn makes it even better, because when it was in Sag, even though it was in its own sign, it was forming a square to you. So there was friction. There was maybe some kind of obstacles, as much as you may have benefited professionally from it, if you did, that is. But even if you did, you still may have kind of sensed that it wasn't really flowing the way that it should, and it will, because there's a harmonious angle called a sextile between you and Capricorn. And so this will be in the 11th house of friendships, group associations, and your hopes and wishes. Okay. So some possibilities that may come out of this transit in the coming 12 months is that you may find that your social network expands quite a bit. And, you know, some people may say, well, big deal, you know, what does it mean? Even if I have more friends, so what? That's not going to really benefit me. But what if it's for something professionally? You know, maybe even something like a business that you own where you need those contacts because it's word of mouth. It's just like having that kind of reach from people, being able to tell other people, yeah, that's word of mouth, isn't it? And the other thing too is that the 11th house is the internet. So if you have, like I just said, word of mouth, but you may decide to launch something that is internet-based, technology-based, and that could really expand things. And even if you work for somebody else, if you can convince them to let you work remotely, you may even have a desire to be a digital nomad where you don't have any kind of set location. You can do your work from any part of the world and still make a living. Perhaps you don't even, it's like I said, it might not even be the business that you own, but it's like you're working for somebody else without having to commute every day, do things like that. And so these kinds of things are really important because they give you a sense of freedom. And in the 11th house, Aquarius rules this house. And Aquarius is a sign that loves to be a nonconformist, to not have to, be something that somebody else wants them to be. And the reason this is so important is because in the 11th house, this can, the 11th house is about hopes and wishes. And one of those things that you may be hoping for is a sense of your own autonomy, even. And, we already have the 10th house for career matters and goals. So the 11th house, I kind of exclude those areas, although sometimes I think they can connect with other dreams that you have. And that's why I gave the example of being able to travel, because it gives a person that sense of autonomy where they don't have somebody breathing down their neck all the time, and they don't have to answer to anybody, in person. Obviously, whatever it is that you do, you have to answer to others. Even if you own your own business, you have to answer to your customers. So it's not about, that per se, but it is about the feeling of having as much control over your life as possible. And you already have some heavy hitters in this 11th house. You have Pluto in Capricorn, and you have Saturn there, and you also have the South Node. So what I feel like, Pisces, is that you may have this kind of like now or never attitude, where something that you have put on the back burner, something that, like a long range goal that somehow has never gotten fulfilled, perhaps because of mitigating factors, you're just kind of like, I can't do this any longer. I can't wait. I can't put this off. I have to make this happen. So it might be a move. You may, I'm just using an American example, but let's say you live in the Midwest. And I'm saying this because I live in the Chicago area, and we've had like really cold temperatures prematurely. So maybe I'm, projecting myself onto this, but saying, I've always wanted to live in Florida, and I always have some excuse of why I can't do it. Now I'm going to just throw caution to the wind. I'm not going to defer my dreams any longer. Because Pluto in this house can make you obsessed with realizing a dream, and Saturn can provide the structure for that dream. So you may have been working towards something specifically, like building a summer home or a second home somewhere, that you just are like gradually doing. And when Jupiter goes in there, it's like, okay, now it's time to cash or what do they call it? Like when with poker, turn in my chips and get my money and stuff, cash my chips in, whatever that means, or whatever the saying goes. And so the point is that there's a big focus on this particular area for you, where Saturn has been kind of like laying out a structure for those dreams that have been deferred. And actually, Saturn is about delays, but Saturn is also about foundation. So if you have felt like things that you wanted to accomplish have been taking a long time, Saturn will be leaving this house in 2020 and then going in your 12th house. That'll be fun. But then Jupiter is going to be there with Pluto, and I think that is actually going to be a pretty good combination, because there's going to be a couple of conjunctions of Jupiter and Pluto. Since I have, let me see, one of them is in November of 2020, and I think that's like they're a degree apart. Yeah, so the earlier one is around the time of March 29th, 2020 through about April 5th of 2020. An exact 24-degree conjunction between Jupiter and Pluto in the 11th house. And this can be something that is connected with friends in high places, where you are benefiting from others who have a lot of pull for whatever reason. Maybe they're your friends. Maybe you've gotten this through networking. There could definitely be a change in your social structure and standing in the next year with both Jupiter with Jupiter entering this sector and joining Pluto. Now, Pluto may have already produced some of this. You may have felt like you needed to change your circle of friends. I was going to say if you've gotten a big head over your success, having Jupiter in the 10th house, but it would be more than that. And I do believe that even though some people give Pluto a bad rap, that all of these planets, Saturn and Pluto, being in that 11th house, or being in any house, that they are not a curse, that they are actually something that can help you get ahead in life. And really, when I say get ahead, I'm not talking about something specifically career related, but just in terms of your own personal growth. And that's what the conjunction between Jupiter and Pluto really is about self-improvement. But you're doing this in a very social area when it's the 11th house. You've already had Jupiter, and right now it's in that 10th house, expanding your career life and even perhaps making a name for yourself where more people hear of you. But when it's in the 11th house, we're talking about maybe even exerting an influence over a lot of people. The 11th house is the collective. And if you are a Pisces person who feels like you have a mission to spread the word about something, this can be like the time when you feel the urge to do so more than ever. Because Jupiter in the 11th will give a greater reach to people. This is the masses, the 11th house. This is why technology is associated with the 11th, including the internet, but also motion pictures and things like that. I'm sure radio would be as well. Anything that is an invention is technology. And, Pisces you tend to be kind of like a rather retiring sign. You rule the 12th house. It's the house of the monk, the hermit. So you're not the type to be necessarily that extroverted in and of yourself. But I've met Pisces people in my time that were very outgoing. And I'm sure if I looked at their chart, maybe their rising sign is fire and they can easily step into that role, being the chameleon that you guys are, and really embody the extroverted person if you have fire rising or air rising especially. and you may like that idea of wanting to communicate things. But let me just get into more stuff because that's just one piece of this. And I just want to talk briefly about the solar eclipse. I had to pause this. Boy, I'm going to be embarrassed if I find out that I repeated myself, but I don't think I said this. That this December 25th or 26th, depending on where you live in the world, if you live in North America, it's going to be on Christmas evening, and that's pretty special in and of itself, regardless if you are a Christian. Just that idea of the rebirth and the birth, But anyway, the sun, there's going to be a solar eclipse, a powerful new moon in Capricorn, early degree of Capricorn, 4 degrees. So that will be your 11th house of hopes and wishes. The late astrologer Jane Spiller used to talk about the making your 40 wishes for, I think, what did you say, 40 wishes for the 11th house, or was that for the birthday wishes? But anyway, let's just say 10, at least 10 wishes. But, having this area like where you really set intentions when you have a new moon there. These are like the sun transits and the new moon. Because this is supposed to attract those things to you during this time. And the fact that this is a solar eclipse makes this even more powerful in terms of planting seeds and having those new beginnings. Eclipses kind of take things out of our hands, so they manifest more easily because it's connected to the nodes that are transiting. So there's a sense of this is meant to be, that this is not a mistake, that this is happening at this time, whether it's something new coming in or something leaving. And of course, when you think about it, it really is like kind of interchangeable in a way, because if something is coming, something is going at all times. You have to let go of something old to make room for something new. And the special quality of this particular solar eclipse is that Jupiter is right there at an early degree. Since Jupiter goes into Capricorn in December, it's only at 5 degrees when the solar eclipse is at 4 degrees. So it's really a tight conjunction. And even Uranus is there, because Uranus is in Taurus at 2 degrees at the time of this happening. Now, Uranus is still retrograding when this eclipse is occurring, so that's why it is at 2 degrees instead of, I don't know, I don't have my thing out here, but instead of I think now it's about 4 degrees of Taurus. And the point being that for you, Taurus is your 3rd house of communication. And so these are like 2, houses that are really internet connected. I've heard the 3rd house being connected to the internet as well. And this is where you have the ruler of the 11th house transiting in the 3rd house. So that's pretty interesting in and of itself. But something new developing that connects that 11th house and that 3rd house. So I suspect that some of you have something in the works that requires the means to disseminate it to a large amount of people. So whether it is some kind of website or blog that you think is going to be a major hit, that a lot of people are going to want to visit this site, or whether it is a message that you want to send to people, and this could be about, just about anything, but that you have, maybe it's even like a book, the third house can be writing, but you're somehow promoting it electronically, who knows? But with Jupiter in this house, in this 11th house, in Capricorn, I think there's a desire to, even for some of you, create the kind of utopian situation that you're looking for. And for some of you, this may border on obsession. It's funny, I don't have this particular transit, but I can kind of relate to that in a certain way in terms of like those goals, because I love this idea of eco villages and tiny homes in like the same piece of land where people can have their privacy and yet really connect as community. I think that is an ideal restructuring of society. I have all these ideas of ways that we can live that are, not in the mainstream, but are very, maybe more satisfying and yet not chaotic, and wholesome. So these kinds of things are not unusual that people are thinking about them, but for you, Pisces, it might take it to the next level because Pluto has been here, and now with Jupiter, you may even get the money to be able to fund some of these dreams. And maybe it shows up for you in a different way than what I'm describing. But in any case, regardless of how this is going to impact you, I definitely feel like this is going to be a year when the people that you meet or that you become friendly with could have a very impactful influence on your life in the coming year. That could be super important, and even, dare I say, especially at those times when Jupiter and Pluto are coming together, that it could even catapult you to a new level of what we would call like social standing, even though that's not the 11th house. The Capricorn influence for sure connects to status in some cases, and that you feel like you have arrived, that you have a certain maybe you feel like an elevation of some sort in a social circle and a sense of empowerment as well. And, I wouldn't even be surprised if some of you take up some kind of like political position in your local area. And this may be something that you do very impulsively with Uranus there, where it might even just come from somebody else saying, hey, would you take over for me or something? And it's just very unexpected. But you may take to it very well and feel like this is something that you were destined to be a part of. Okay, well, that's what I have for you, Pisces. I hope that might have been interesting for you. This is kind of like in an interesting place because it's a house that's associated in many cases with other people. And although your dreams are definitely part of this house, and you may realize some of your dreams because Jupiter tends to grant us our wishes, and that's why it is known as a benefic planet. So I offer natal chart readings and other types of astrological readings, and if you are interested in a reading for the coming year, my natal chart interpretation is available, and as well as other types of readings like love rings, etc., etc. My website is rainamoonastrology.com. The link is below. Take care. Bye.